A sides got hype, but people root for the underdog. There may be a main event, but don't sleep on the undercard. Welcome to the B-side, you can take your sneaks off, take you for a sweet ride. Info is supply, worldwide, thanks for flipping to the B-side. Yeah, hosted by Brian Mackay.
Thank you for flipping to the B-side. I am your host, Brian Mackay, and we are back. This is the day after Christmas. I'm recording this little intro here. I know I've been telling you guys for the longest time that I was going to get out my review of Basketball, A Love Story, the multi-documentary piece that ESPN 30 for 30 producers put out. So here that is, plus I'm going to have a little bit of a rant about just my angst, and this is what's going to help me lose weight. I can just tell you now, people, and my family has heard me rant about this before, but I can't help. I want better for my state. The state of Mississippi is last in just about every single category that matters. And I want better for it. And the whole mobile pay issue with the different restaurants, fast food restaurants, where you can pay with your mobile pay app, or you can basically download the app for that particular restaurant and you can put money on the app and you can pay through there. Oh my gosh. If I go to one more restaurant where I go to show them, either they ask you for the app will show you a number you have to give them, or they have a little scan deal that you have to scan. If I go to one more restaurant where I show my phone to the fast food employee at the window and they look at me like I have four heads and they have to go find somebody to help them. And I've even had instances where managers didn't even know how to do it. This is a problem, and I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna lay off it right now because I'm just intro, but I'm gonna get into my just I want to scream at how bad this makes me. And another part I'll get into, I want to talk a little bit about. It's kind of dated at this point, but the Avengers Endgame trailer came out a couple weeks ago, which is Avengers 4, the fourth installment of the Avengers MCU detail. I'm going to get into a little bit of what I think about that trailer and where I could see Avengers 4 going. I never grew up on, I will say this, I'm not one of those who grew up reading comics. I wasn't that person. When I grew up, it was basketball and it was everything to me, so I didn't have time for anything else. And, just never was a big comic reader. But I have been a fan of the MCU movies since the very first Iron Man back in 2008. And I just have grown through them. So it's about a little over a decade for me in my fandom. And I've been hooked on every one of them ever since. I mean, I saw Avengers Infinity War twice. And I know I'm thinking, okay, wow, there's people out there who saw it multiple times. I don't really have an IMAX theater close. I guess the closest one would be New Orleans. And I've heard that if you see these MCU movies in an IMAX, it's an experience you won't forget. So I'm thinking maybe I may travel to New Orleans to see the Avengers Endgame in IMAX. But I'm going to get into a little bit of that. So for you people who are coming to this episode looking for my review on Basketball, A Love Story, in the description below of this episode, you'll see the timestamps for each time, like my intro, my rant that I'm going to go on about mobile pay and fast food restaurants, etc. And you'll see the timestamp for when I talk about Avengers Endgame. And then there'll be the timestamp at the end for my review of Basketball, A Love Story. So if you're not a fan You don't really want to hear my rant on the mobile pay and fast food restaurants, feel free to skip over that. Fast forward. You will not hurt my feelings. Just as long as you listen to something, that's all that's all I'm out there for. And the Avengers Endgame. If you're not a fan of the MCU and the Avengers, and don't really get into that, feel free to skip past that. Go on to a basketball love story. I appreciate you for listening, for whatever you listen to. So, okay, getting started. My rant on mobile and app pay for restaurants and fast food restaurants. Oh my gosh. Okay. And it's only a rant because I just want better for my state. I want us to not be the last to be to be able to use something. Something. Let's don't be last in something, please. And I'm afraid we probably are last in this as well. Because the mobile pay and app pay has been out for a couple of years now. And many restaurants have had it for a couple of years where you can pay through your app or through your phone. It's just it's so aggravating. I mean, I can tell you the Sonic down here I've had issues with. Um, and Whataburger has been better than most, but still have had issues there. I just want to know, what are they training these employees? What are they doing in training? Because how can you look at a customer coming at you? You have signs all over your restaurant. Pay with your app. Avoid the wait. Pay with your app. No money, no credit card involved. You got all you put the money on your app. Pay with it. Signs all over the place, and your employees look at the customer like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about that. I've actually had a situation where I didn't have any other money or credit card on me, and all I had was my app at Sonic. The stall I was at was not working. It had gone out on me after I'd ordered and I was getting ready to pay. The stall at Sonic had screwed up. The car hop comes out and she looks at me and I tell her, my situation. And this is like the fourth or fifth time this happened at this particular Sonic. And I, she just looks at me and says, "Oh, I don't know anything about that." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, does anyone? I mean, so she goes back, talk to the manager. Come to find out, the manager didn't even know anything about the mobile pay, the app pay. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, well, I don't have any money, I don't have any credit cards, so I guess here you brought me my food, you can have it back. The girl wind up, and I'm not fussing at the actual car hops and the actual employees. I don't blame them as much as I blame management and ownership at these establishments, because they have to be trained. And you let someone work there all this time, you got them in the window, you got them being a car hop, you got them the one that's interacting with the customer who's coming up there with their mobile pay, ready to pay for their food, and you haven't trained them properly on how to do all this stuff. Shame on you. Shame on you. And like I said, it's happened multiple times at many different restaurants. Yes, I eat fast food a lot. That's probably another story. That's probably something that I should not do. And I'm telling you now, as fired up as I get about this whole situation right here, I'm telling you, this is what's going to help me, because I plan on doing a lot more dieting and a lot more exercising in 2019. And this is what's going to help me do that, because I'm going to just be fed up to the point where I won't even look at another fast food restaurant. So, yeah, going back to the Masonic story. Like I said, it was like this happened 4 or 5 times with this particular Sonic, and the girl just looks at me. She said, "You know what? Just keep the food. I'll cancel the order, and you just make the order as a cancel, and we'll deal with it that way." Well, I felt bad about this, so the next time I came that way, I mean, I wasn't gonna come back into that city at that point where the Sonic was. I wasn't gonna come back there that day, but weeks or so gone by, and I went by there and just got me a green tea, because I'm big. All I pretty much drink, I drink a little bit of sweet tea, a lot of green tea, and a lot of water. I don't drink any kind of sodas, anything like that at this point in my life. Cut all that out. Um, but I love Sonic's green tea, and I love that you can put a little flavor in it, like a peach or whatever. So I went by there to get me a peach green tea with peach, after my haircut, which happened to be right down the street from the Sonic. So I go in there, and the same girl winds up being my car hop. So she comes out there, and I had some cash on me. So I paid for my green tea, and I paid her. And she remembered me because, like I said, come there a lot. And for the like, and I spoke about this on on other episodes, but for those that know me, I have a memorable face. What can I say? So, uh, yeah, so she comes out there, and I paid for my sweet tea, and I gave her the extra money and told her it was for the meal that she let me take, and she just canceled the order the last time when the stall wasn't working and I wasn't able to use the mobile pay because they didn't know how to get it going. And she was very grateful, and like I said, I didn't blame her. I don't blame her because she'll flat out admit, and she's been there for a long time because I've seen her multiple times, like I said. So she's been at this Sonic for a long time. So I know she's worked there for a while. Somebody should be training these employees on how to use these things. So because I'm so fired up today, I'm recording here at the BMac Production Studios, which is basically my brother and sister-in-law's dining room, with the sweet acoustics. For all my trolls fans out there, you'll know that why that's funny. But yeah, so as I'm recording, I just come from the bank, made a little deposit because you go through Christmas and you gotta pay off those credit cards. So I had to make a little deposit. So I had a little money in the bank to pay off the credit cards. After I did that, I decided to roll through Wendy's because it's right there, and I said, kind of hungry. Might as well go through here, get me a little something to eat before I go out to my brother's house. And I'm actually pulling double duty. I'm working on setting up he and his wife's new iMac, that Santa gave them for Christmas, and also recording this podcast. So if you hear me cuss here in a second, it's not because of anything going wrong with the podcast. It's because the iMac setup may be giving me trouble, and he's actually out of town right now, so I'm gonna have to kind of go back and forth with him because when I sign into his Apple account, I'm gonna need his phone on the other end, with the verification codes and all that. So, yeah, if you hear me cussing, it's because I had to stop the podcast and deal with that. But anyway, back to my original point. I get off on tangents. I apologize. So, Wendy's today. Go through Wendy's. Pull up. The girl tells me my total. Get up to the window. And, you know, as I just told you, I had gone by the bank so I can make a deposit on, any loose change I could find, and I had rolled up, any little money laying around, Christmas money, put it in the bank so I could pay for my credit cards. Well, the reason I chose to go to Wendy's is because I happened to look in my app and I saw I had some money on my app, and I said, you know what? Let me run through Wendy's so I don't have to actually pay with any money that I need at this point. This is money that I already had on the app. So I went through, ordered, got my total, pull up to the window, and my total happened to be less than the money I had in the app, which was perfect. I said, "Man, God is smiling on me today. This is gonna be a good day." And how wrong I could have been. So I get to the first window to pay. Girl looks at me. She says, "It's gonna be 1021." So I show her my phone. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna pay with my mobile pay." And once again, get looked at like you have three heads. And she said, "You said what now?" And I looked at her and I just closed my eyes and said a little 3-second prayer and looked back at her and I went, "I'm paying with my mobile pay. Here's the code." Because Wendy's, you have a 6-digit code you give them. Um, the girl looked at me, "Oh, okay, hold on 1 second." So I know what this was going to be. She goes, gets her manager, another lady. doesn't know how to use this. The manager doesn't know. They go and get a third employee who does actually know how to use it, but can't get it going because he forgot that he had to put the total in first in the system. And all this time I'm rolling my eyes because I know at this point my food is at that second window. It probably room temperature or cold at this point. So I finally get the third employee gets me going on my app, pay for my food, and I move on. And I had, my credit cards with me or whatever. I could have just let them swipe that, but once again, it's the principle of the thing. Don't advertise mobile pay options if you are not going to be equipped to do it. And I'm just telling you, don't put an employee in the window that doesn't understand, doesn't know that, because that is so frustrating for the consumer. And I cannot be the only one who gets frustrated by this. I know I cannot be. But if I am, I'll stand on this hill alone for all I care. I will scream from the hill to the day I die. Because, like I said, I want better for my state. I want things to be different. I don't want to be last in everything. And anyway, so I pay for my food, and I said, you know what? I've already recorded the majority of my basketball love story review, and the part about Avengers Endgame that you'll hear. I got to put this on the beginning. I have to throw this on the beginning, this little rant, and hopefully it gets people laughing, and enjoy, and just a little enjoyment. Because I know holidays can be stressful for many people. Christmas is particularly stressful because you have this big build up, and oh yeah, Christmas is coming, Christmas is coming. Christmas gets here, and if you don't really go into it knowing the reason for the season, Christmas will get here and it lasts a day, and then it's over, and you're like, oh wow. So I can see why a lot of people could get themselves depressed, because you're building up for this big day, and then the day comes, and then it's over, and you're going back to work, and you're like, God, so ready for the new year. But yeah, so and that's just not even half of it. I can go back to my Zaxby's experience, which um, happened to coincide. We had a family dog pass away and had to be put to sleep, and we were coming back. Me, my brother, and my dad were coming back from visiting him at the vet hospital during this one particular encounter, and we was getting some lunch, and they both wanted. Oh gosh, I can't remember what they ate. Crystals. They both got crystal burgers. And right down the street was a Zaxby's. And I said, well, y'all go ahead and order your crystals. And while y'all are doing that, I'll order Zaxby's on the app. And because it literally says, I'll get to that in a minute. Just forget that. So I said, I'll order my Zaxby's on the app. By the time we leave crystals, we can swing by Zaxby's. I'll run inside, get my to go order, and be done. So we do that. We roll up to Zaxby's. They got their crystal burgers. We roll up to Zaxby's, and I go inside, and there's a line that you're supposed to go to. It has it labeled, all online to go orders come here. So I go, and I say, hey, Brian Mackay, I have a to go order from the app, and there again, that same look, like you have seven heads and they don't know what to do, and one person goes to the next person goes to the next person. They tell me at one point, okay, we see your order. We have not started on it yet. We need to push it through. So what we're gonna need you to do is get into this line on the far left, and now and they said, and they'll push it through, and then you can come back this way. And I went, you want me to get in that line, which is now built up to about 12 people. When I sent in my order on the app, and I'm looking at the sign in front of me at the line that you're supposed to go to pick up online orders. It says, and I quote, avoid the wait, place your order online to go. Avoid the wait, big bold letters. So I'm out of my mind crazy at this point. So I get in the other line, go through that whole process, finally get up there, and the girl said, what can I get for you?" And I said, "Well, you can get the order that I ordered on the app." And she looked at me and I said, "Yeah, they told me to get in this line so you could push the order through. Uh, I don't know why, because that's not supposed to be the case, but whatever. I'm here now." So she goes in, she sees my order. Two or three more people had to get involved. And at this point, I could just feel the people behind me getting more and more frustrated. And at that, I wanted to say so bad, "I don't really care if you're upset, because you don't understand. I've been here for almost 45 minutes now. My dad and my brother have been sitting out in my brother's truck. They have completely eaten every little bit of their Crystal's meal. So, yes, finally, after an hour and 15 minutes, and if you were asking me why I stood there that long, because I was not going to let them win today, Jesus. Wasn't going to let them win. And, because at the end of the day, I am a stubborn person. And I can be very, very stubborn. When I'm in the right on something, you ain't ever going to get me to admit wrong. And I get that from, other elements. But I was completely knew I was in the right, and I'm not going back down. And it had gotten beyond frustrating. Didn't get offered anything while I was standing there, and they were just kind of coming back, looking at me like, "Oh yeah, he's still here." Didn't get offered a discount on something. No, sorry for your wait. Nothing. When they finally gave me my food, an hour and 15 minutes in, I wanted to get on out of there. So of course, as we tend to do in moments of anger. First thing I did when I got home after I ate my food, of course, was to get online and write a complaint, which I had done at the other places where I've had issues. Um, and I write my complaint, and I never ever hear back from anyone. Never. I don't. It's just, why do you even have these customer service complaint portals if you're not going to ever reach out to the customer and let them know that something's going to be done to fix it, or hey, we hear your complaint, we're going to work on that, something. But I'll give it to Zaxby's. Their manager called me the very next day. The manager from the store that I was at, and I explained what happened to me, and she was very apologetic. And I told her, I said, what, honestly, I'm not the type. I'm well, I am the type to complain, because I will complain if I see wrong. But had I just come home, took a minute to take a deep breath, get over my anger, I was already emotional because we saw our dog, basically just hanging on to life at this point, and we wound up having to put him down a couple of days after this. So it was already an emotional moment for me, and I told her, I didn't tell her all that, but it was just, everything was heightened that day, and it just got to me. It got to me so bad that I just felt compelled to reach out and just to explain my dissatisfaction with the whole process. And again, she was very apologetic. She was understood completely, and even told me that the next time I come in, if I tell them my name, there's a meal, whatever my next meal order would be, next value meal order would be free. They would have my name in the system, and I was, that was nice of her. She didn't have to do that. She could have just said, she could have left it at, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna train our employees better and be done. And but she went that step further and gave me that free meal, and I appreciated that. And Zaxby's is one, is back on my list, on my good side because of it. But yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to go somewhere, and technology is advancing enough where we can pay through our app like that, and we don't have to carry wads of cash, and don't have to worry about having credit cards everywhere, somebody stealing your identity, things like that. It's perfect, especially for somebody like me who is all about convenience. When I can have it, I want it. So, yeah, so that's my rant on the mobile pay and fast food restaurants. Avengers Endgame trailer came out a couple weeks ago now after just waiting and waiting and waiting and just waiting and seeing all the people voice their displeasure about how long they've had to wait for this trailer online. And while I was anxious to see the trailer, I was not one of those who got like so upset, as I believe Twitter was just craziness with how upset people were getting over waiting for this release. But we finally got a little teaser trailer, and it's on the back of Captain Marvel's second trailer release that's come out. Gave a little bit more on what we're to expect in her solo movie coming out in March. But Avengers, we got the name. It's gonna be Avengers Endgame. It's the fourth installment, and it's the basically second part of the Infinity War that we got last April. And as far as as we know, coming out of that movie, Thanos has fulfilled his prophecy. He got all the Infinity Stones. He snapped his fingers, and half of all living creatures were disintegrated into dust. And that included many of our heroes. So here we are, Avengers Endgame. Trailer comes out. First thing we see is Tony Stark, which is on. He looks to be on the ship that the Guardians of the Galaxy uh, were using at the time where they came into Titan to find Thanos and Gamora. Um, when they were in search for them. So it looks like he's on that ship, and we see later on in the trailer that Nebula, who was the only other living creature left standing on Titan after their battle, and Thanos snaps his fingers, everyone else disintegrated but Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Nebula. So Tony Stark is basically putting a message out there that when he's found, when his body is found, as he thinks he's dying, he's ran out of food and water. Oxygen level is failing, and it'll be gone by the next day, is what he says in this video he's making. And he's just, leaving basically a message to Pepper Potts. And so that was a eerie way to start, because you're thinking, oh man, obviously we know enough to know Iron Man's not going to be gone for long. Even if he does die, they're gonna got to be a way for him to come back in this movie, because he's going to play too big of a role in this movie to just be perished in the first few minutes. And we don't know at what point this video is being made. We only assume it's the first little bit of the movie because it's the first little bit of the trailer. And the Russo brothers have fooled us before with trailers, so you never know what could happen. What else happened in the trailer? Oh, Captain America and Black Widow are, basically you see Captain America has shaved. He's clean shaven. He's in some scenes he's wearing his old gear from, I think it was Winter Soldier, or I believe that's what I read. That was the gear from Winter Soldier he was wearing. But could be wrong on that. But obviously, at this point, you've checked out. You've seen many other reviews, and if you're even listening to this, you've read enough about what other people believe, theories about the movie that at this point. So going on from there, Captain America has a little voiceover where he's talking about what they've lost. They've lost this, they've lost that, they lost family. And when he says family and lost a piece of themselves, it flashes to Japan, where we see Hawkeye, which is now in his Ronin character, his renegade character, and you can just tell he's just distraught looking. He just out there just killing all these people. I mean, looking like he's on like a revenge warpath type deal, and leads you to believe that he's doing this because Thanos has wiped out his family, which we all know is big to him. He was a big family man, which is why we didn't see him in the first in the first installment of the Infinity War, the first part of this, because he was off. He was retired and dealing with family and being with his family. So we can only deduce deductive reasoning here that he's become this renegade character because they are gone, and he's vengeful and just seeking anything he can get in retribution for his family being dusted. So there's that. Um, I do like how they ended this video because it's real eerie all the way through it, almost kind of emotional, and then bam, they get a Black Widow and Captain America see a video, which at the top of it does say archive video footage, but it's Ant-Man, who, as we know, at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, everybody, the Wasp, Evangeline Lilly's character, Wasp, Michael Douglas' character, Hank Pym, and his wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, the original Wasp, they were all dusted in at the end in the end credits of Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Ant-Man was Scott Lang was stuck in the quantum realm. So, how did he get out? Was that actual real time footage? Was he standing at the gate as they said in the trailer, or was that really an archive video where he has gone back in time somehow through the quantum realm? And there's a lot of theories out there like that was. There's some people that say that they read through the video that it was 1983. They said that they see this on the video somehow. I don't. I've not. I've been trying to enhance it myself. I can't. I don't see that, but my eyes are not that good anymore. Uh, but if it is, that could mean that Ant-Man has gone back in time, and he, being a Hank Pym friend, he's maybe gone back in time and seen an older version of Hank Pym, who at that point in time in '83 would have been working with Howard Stark, who is Iron Man's dad, Tony Stark's dad. So all that could be, a misdirection. That seems a little far fetched, but hey, it could happen. That would be an interesting take on things. Um, Thanos, we see him kind of limping. He's got his farmer gear on. He has um, the scarecrow. He has his armor up on the pole like a scarecrow that we saw at the end of the last Infinity War. But yeah, he's looking, somewhat damaged. His Infinity Gauntlet is basically fused to his hand now, and it's all broken up from the snap. And uh, he's got a little bit of a limp, so we don't know what kind of damage he's been through because of, using the Infinity Gauntlet with all the stones in it. So we don't know where that's going to go. But there's rumors that there are going to be more villains introduced into this movie, which they say, everything I've read and seen, it could be 3 hours plus of a movie. Right now it's sitting at 3 hours, and thinking that's what it's going to be, once, picture time gets here. Be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they do introduce new villains like this. Uh, you're gonna need a good 3 hours just so you could build up the characters enough to be worthy. And yeah, and what's Captain Marvel's role gonna be? I imagine in her solo movie in March, which is a look back at her beginnings. Back is set in the 1990s, and I imagine we're gonna get a lot of maybe what her involvement could be from her solo movie. Uh, I loved the de aging that they did with Samuel L. Jackson character. He looks like he did back in the day. He got him a bunch of hair, and it's funny how they did that. So that'll be interesting to see where that takes us, and why she been gone all this time? Why did Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury's character, why did he just now send the page out for her, as we saw at the end of the Infinity War? So many questions, and I can't. I can tell you guys, I'm excited for this movie. I'm really excited for it. Like I said, I'm gonna try and see it in IMAX as well as in the regular theater. Um, I I may see this multiple times. I mean, maybe a dozen times because I'm just hyped for this one, and I think it's. I mean, it's being billed as the end of Phase 3, going into Phase 4, the opening of Phase 4, which is supposed to be a lot more cosmic. A lot more dealing with space. And I think that's what's gonna. I think Captain Marvel will do a good job of opening that world because it's supposed to deal a lot with the Kree and the Skrull War, which Captain Marvel believes she is Kree because she's got Kree blood. They basically brainwashed her to believe that she's Kree. So we'll see, where that takes us. And yeah, so this is going to be very interesting. As far as those characters who have been dusted, Doctor Strange, there's theories out there, and there's supposedly word that he plays a big part in Endgame. And you remember, right? He is the one who said we're in the Endgame now at the end of Infinity War. He says that to Tony Stark on Titan right before he gets dusted. Um, so how he comes back, will it be a deal where he meets up with Ant-Man in the quantum realm, or is when he was going through all his 14 million and whatever uh instances on how this whole thing plays out, did he use one of those instances to go back in time, tell Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, did he go out back in time, tell Nick Fury about what was going to happen, and that's why Nick Fury paged Captain Marvel when he did? Is that something that we're going to see, in Captain Marvel? That's a lot. That's another theory out there. It's a lot of different theories, and if some of them come true, if none of them come true, I don't care. This movie is going to blow me away regardless. I'm just. I've watched Infinity War probably close to 100 times since it came out on digital, and it's I just catch little pieces of it, and I go back and watch some of the other Captain Americas and Iron Mans, just trying to get some kind of nugget of what we might be in store for. And it's been interesting. As many times as I've seen these movies, I still catch little bitty pieces here and there, little way things are worded. I didn't realize that Tony Stark used Endgame in, I think it was Civil War, when he was talking about um, when they were in there talking about different things, and then when they all basically were split on the Sokovia Accords and how to handle that. Yeah, he actually uses it in there when he's talking to Captain America, and or maybe that was Ultron, Age of Ultron, one of the two. I can't. I think it was Age of Ultron, but yeah. How does Doctor Strange supposedly play a big role in bringing Iron Man and Captain America together? Another good question. It's be interesting to see where that goes. I've said it probably a dozen times already on this podcast, but I'm excited. I'm ready for this. It is something that April can't get here fast enough, and it's only a few months away. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be Christmas all over again for me. And it is finally here, ladies and gentlemen. I know I've been talking about this for a while on different episodes, and I'm finally ready to unleash my review of ESPN's documentary, Basketball, A Love Story, based off the novel by Jackie McMullen and the crew. New York Times bestseller, best-selling book. Yeah, they made it into a 20-hour documentary with, broadcasting pieces here and there, and you can see the entire thing on ESPN Plus if you have a subscription to that. And yeah, it's definitely worth viewing if you're a basketball fan, sports fan of any kind. I a lot of the stories that I saw in it, I knew about. Some were not. Some I learned more than I thought I knew about situations. Like I didn't know about the 1984 men's basketball team coached by Bobby Knight. I didn't realize they had the whole issues where in the scrimmages, scrimmage games against other NBA talent, they were basically out there. The NBA guys were out there just to hurt Michael Jordan and the players on the USA team because those college kids, Michael and Patrick and David Robinson and those crew, they were beating up on the. I mean, they were beating the NBA guys, and those NBA guys didn't take too kindly to that, so it didn't go over too well. Of course, Bobby Knight, being Bobby Knight, he let his opinion be known on it. So I didn't know all that went down. I didn't know I knew about the Olympic Games where Russia won the gold medal, basically in a whole lot of controversy against Ole Miss against the USA with Doug Collins and that crew on the USA team. A lot of controversy behind that game. Um, yeah, that was interesting. I mean, I'd always heard the stories, and still to this day, the USA team has not accepted their silver medal. Um, and I agree. I agree. The way that went down, it defies all logic on how many times Russia got a chance to repeat that last play until they finally scored and won the game. Just a lot involved there that struck me. But where I'm going to start with my review is I loved how they opened up the documentary with all these former players and current players talking about their time growing up when they were outside of the basketball court or in their room shooting baskets on a little like Nerf type goal, and they would be last play of the NBA finals or whatever, and they're counting down and they got the ball in their hands and they're gonna be the one to hit the game winning shot, and they just talk about how they just counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and then they make a move and it's 3, 2, 1. They put the shot up and it goes in, crowd goes wild. I cannot tell you how much that resonated with me because I remember being when we lived out in the country, is what I call it. We had a outside goal where basically we made the court. It was grass when we put the goal in. But by the time, after a few games of playing on it, that grass becomes just hard rock solid dirt. And it's so much easier to dribble on, and you basically make your own court when you're playing out there in the country like that. Your friends come over, what have you. But I cannot tell you how many times I've been out there by myself or with my brother and sister, and we'd be out there and just I would be, you know, I would never be an actual player. I would be myself, and I would put myself in situations like 1993 Bulls versus Suns, Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals. Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley. Michael Jordan passes to John Paxson. He hits the game winner, game six for the 3-pointer. Game six, winning shot. I would be John. I would be not John Paxson, but I would be me playing the John Paxson role. Or in 1995, 96, 95, yeah, 95 when same thing happens, but now it's Steve Kerr. I would be the Steve Kerr role. Having Michael hit me when he gets double teamed, and I'm hitting the game winner. Or I would take it to college and Ole Miss, or I was a big North Carolina fan growing up. Um, I would be playing for them, playing for the national championship. Ready to hit that game winning shot. It's just that was something that really, really struck me. I was like, wow, all these legends and all these big time players, they're just like me. They grew up just like me with that dream of being a basketball player, with the love of the game just running through them. That was awesome. That was something that really hit me. But yeah, like I said, so much was covered, and I thought they did an excellent job of hitting everything. Only thing I really wish they would have done more of was cover the Houston Comets more of WNBA. I understand why. I understand because Houston Comets are now no longer. I'm sure they didn't want to focus too much on a team that was no longer there. But I can just tell you because, if y'all have heard in previous episodes, I have a really good relationship with Coach Van Chancellor, and when he was the Comets coach in those first couple years, when they won the 4 straight WNBA championships, I've been in some big time situations, seen big time games. I've never heard a place as loud as the Summit, which is now the home of Joel Osteen's church in Houston. Never heard a place as loud as those games would be in the NBA and WNBA finals or just regular season games. That place was packed when the Comets were rolling, and I know one game in particular was Game 2 of the 1998 WNBA Finals. Houston Comets, Phoenix Mercury. Houston had, because of the way the playoff bracket was done, um, for whatever reason, the lower seed got Game 1, and the higher seed got the next 2. It was a 3-game series. You had to win 2 out of 3. So Houston had to go to Phoenix in Game 1. Lost at the buzzer. I think Cheryl Swoops misses a 3-pointer. Would have won it for Houston, but Phoenix wins at the buzzer. So coming into Houston, Game 2, my family and I get out there for the game. I'm in a little bit of a pickle on what to do because Phoenix had Jennifer Gillum. Jennifer Gillum is one of my all-time favorite people. Her and her sister Peggy, I love them like I've said before, like they're my aunts. I love them to death. But then Houston. Houston was my favorite team. I love Coach Chancellor. I wanted him to win. They had just come off winning the first championship in 1997. I wanted them to go back to back. So when Game 2 came out, and with about 10 minutes to go in the second half, Phoenix had this big lead. And I remember looking at my dad and thinking, no, it's good. It's okay. They're not gonna win this one, but at least Jennifer's gonna get her championship. That was my mindset. I had already kind of come to that conclusion. Then I don't know what flipped the switch. There's been stories about it, to this day. But Houston, the Comets come out and they make this unbelievable run and wind up going ahead with just a few minutes to go in the game. And that place, the Summit, was so loud. All 16,000 were just screaming at the top of their lungs. And it was, you couldn't hear anything. I was sitting right next to my family. I couldn't hear anything they were saying. Even when they were right in my ear, I still couldn't hear it. That kind of experience, that right there would just set you apart as a basketball fan. It makes you feel something, to be in atmospheres like that. And I've experienced many situations like that, but that's one that always sticks out in my mind. Is when Houston made that comeback and they won Game 2 and wound up going on to win Game 3 and winning back-to-back championships. And the next year, '99, when Teresa Weatherspoon hits a half-court shot to send the game to to move the series to the next game, when Houston looked like they were fixing to win their 3rd in a row right there that night. And Houston winds up winning the very next game, which is almost like a forgotten point at this juncture because everybody always talks about that half court shot the Spoon hit. And that's something that I'll get to later on because I actually worked for Teresa Weatherspoon for a year at Louisiana Tech, and that was a big part of my interview process was bringing up that game because she has no idea. I was so upset because we were supposed to go out for that game. We didn't make it because my dad was in the hospital with kidney stones. So his doctor winds up going in and basically breaking up the stones, getting the stones out So if they had lost that game and the game would go to the next one, we were gonna make it out. And I told Spoon on my interview um, in 2012 when I interviewed to be a part of her staff. I told her, as much as I hated her making that shot, being a Comets fan, man, it did me a world of good because I was able to come out there and watch them actually win the championship the next night. But yeah, so that was fun. But going back, basketball, like I already said, the way it starts off with all the players telling their stories about growing up, being that kid that hits the game winner, all that good stuff. I just and I've said this in other podcasts, in other episodes. Um, because of my scoliosis, my Klippel-Feil syndrome, was never going to be able to play, basketball for, high school, middle school, any kind of organized game. I would never been able to play because never would have passed the physical, and that comes into play going into my ninth grade year because I'd always played, just recreationally on my own with my family, and with the knowledge that any wrong hit could have paralyzed me, and that was known, and it was always kind of a well, look out for Brian type of deal. Um, but yeah, coming into my ninth grade year, we went over, and I actually my last official appointment with the doctors who performed my back surgery when I was 3 and 4 years old. Last official appointment with them, basically, everything looks good. It's fusing exactly how it's supposed to fuse. You're gonna be able to live a normal life. Um, you just won't be able to play sports, any kind of contact sport. And I remember, like, it didn't really hit me in the moment because I mean, I'm 13, 14 years old. I wasn't really comprehending what the doctor was saying, but it didn't hit me until we were on our way home from New Orleans and the Children's Hospital over there. And my mother was on the phone with my dad, and she basically told him, yeah, he said he wouldn't be able to play any contact sports. Um, and that's when it hit. I mean, they knew that was going to be the case going into it, but that's when it hit me. When I hear my mom say it out loud, and it hit me, and I just remember just started crying. Cause basketball was it for me. I wanted to play. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be with my friends, and to know that I would never be able to do that really hurt. Um, so I just remember sitting there and reflecting that day, and I never told anyone this, but I remember just reflecting on uh, everything I've seen when it comes to basketball. At that point, I had seen my dad take his one and only team he ever took to the state tournament. And to this day, he says if their starting point guard had not broken her foot, he would have won a state championship that year. And I believe it because they barely lost in the state tournament to the team that actually won the thing. So I think she would have made the difference on that. But yeah, I've seen stuff like that. I've watched players who may not be big time nationally, but were huge to me. I saw Chris Jackson play, who is from Gulfport, Mississippi. He's now Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. I saw him play in person um, on TV when he was with LSU, and then when he went to the Denver Nuggets. That was awesome because hey, he was from the Mississippi Gulf Coast like I was. That was somebody to really root for. I got to see when my dad coached at Long Beach High School. I got to watch some of the biggest names for me, like Marcus Bullard. May not be a nationally known name because just some legal issues he went through coming through the process, but there are people who are listening to this who are basketball fans who will remember Marcus for being the point guard on the 1996 Mississippi State men's basketball team who got to play in the Final Four. and I think they were put out by John Wallace in New York. But yeah, Dante Jones, Eric Dampier. I mean, that team was loaded. Marcus was the point guard, and kind of kept it all intact. But that was somebody that I got to watch play in high school, and I remember on back-to-back nights. I mean, I was young when he was in high school, but I remember in back-to-back nights watching him score 63 and 60, and just thinking, man, this guy is amazing, and he was a baller. And going on from there, Mark Williams, um, who also played at Long Beach High School, right after Marcus. And I remember him mostly, and I know he'll probably listen to this and he'll enjoy this story. He was, if there, I'll say this: he's the only person in the world I will put up there. And my love of Michael Jordan, he has it just as much, and maybe even more. He's the only person I'll ever say that about. But I remember him most fondly because he let me where he had I mean he had Michael Jordan's look down. He had when he played, he had his armband, he had the bald head, he wore number 23. Awesome. But he let me wear his jersey, his Michael Jordan jersey that he owned, to school when I was like in the fourth or fifth grade. And I remember this to this day because I remember thinking, man, you couldn't have told me nothing in school that day. I think it was a Friday. And I remember going to school just walking around like I owned the entire elementary school because I had a Michael Jordan jersey on. And I will never forget that. That was something that I loved about Mark to this day. And I see him all the time now because he's had a couple of children who go to my old high school. And so I see him at games up there sometimes. And it's always nice to reconnect with him. But yeah, Mark Williams was a stud too. And if injuries hadn't derailed him, I think he would be a name you would hear. But yeah, those are some guys, and I know there's many more I'm not thinking about. Um, but those are names that just stick out in my mind when it comes to my growing up, and not necessarily nationally known names, but big time names to me. And it's a funny story. I told you I can remember watching Marcus Boogert score 60 plus in back to back nights. Um, one story I remember about him when he was playing, my dad had gone home after the girls' game. And I remember the story as it is told to me, because I was too young. I don't remember all this. But as it was told to me, he got home, walked through the door. My mom asked him, "Where's Brian?" And Dad apparently just kind of like, oh, basically, ah, shit. So he turned around, went back to the gym. And this is before cell phones, but wasn't any way he could call somebody and say, "Hey, will you grab Brian and just hold him until I get there?" But they tell this story all the time. He walked back in the gym and he's looking for me in a panic, and all of a sudden he sees me sitting in the bleachers just watching the guys play. And I never even knew that he had left. Never even knew I was left behind there. But that was always a funny story to me. But yeah, Marcus Booger was playing at the time that happened, and I remember I would sit there and watch the guys, thinking, "Man, this is fun." I mean, because they would win and they were beating teams that would, they were beating schools that were much larger than them, and you know. He was just a stud. And when he went on to Mississippi State, it was fun watching him make his run to the Final Four. Yeah, but going on from there, um, obviously, my dad being a girls basketball coach for majority of his career, was, just I have 1,000 different sisters out there who I always love seeing. you know, they may not actually be blood family, but they'll always be family to me. So going on from there, just watching my dad's teams, and he had just a string of bad luck once we moved over to the high school that I graduated from, Christian High School. He just, for a 10-year period, it just seemed like it all just went downhill. And we always say we could write a book with how much just bad luck he had as a coach when it came to injuries, knee injuries for players, pregnancies. It just seemed like there was something in the water during those 10 years he was there. He had so many girls just turn up pregnant, some multiple times. I mean, it's just, it got to be sad but comical. Like, wow, you had players who had to leave and move to another school district to be with another parent because they got caught, shoplifting, or you had other players who were literally caught drinking on the bus going to a basketball game, and my dad didn't even find out till after the game that they were caught drinking, and she had a triple double that night. I ain't gonna say her name, but it's just stuff like that that happened where it just seemed like it was every year. And he retired in 2005, the year Hurricane Katrina hit down here. And I remember, it's just funny that that's the year that he retired, because we knew coming up there was a ninth grade, there were going to be ninth graders that year, that a group of girls that were really fixing to turn Pastor Jen girls basketball around. And we knew in a couple of years that program was going to be good. Whoever was coaching them at the time was going to see some big time wins. And if you go in their gym right now, that not that very first year he was retired, but the year after that, all the way until now, they have banners of either district championships, going to state tournaments. They haven't won a state championship yet, but they've been very, very close ever since. It's almost like they had retired and then fortunes changed around there. But yeah, that's a little bit of that, dealing with my dad's teams. From graduating from high school, spent a couple years at junior college. I headed up to Ole Miss, got an opportunity to be a manager for Carol Ross, who was the head coach at Ole Miss at the time, and Renee Ladner, who would go on to be my boss in a few years after that, um, was an assistant coach. And I got, I knew of them because I'd grown up with Renee Ladner. Her and my mom and my dad, good friends, grown up around her, as you've heard on other podcasts and other episodes. And then Carol played with Renee and Peggy Gillum and my mother. The one year my mother played at Ole Miss back in 1978, 78, 79. Yeah, so I go up there to be a manager for them. It was understood that they already had 3 scholarship managers, so mine, my first year would be non-scholarship, which was understandable. But they were graduating 2 managers that year, so I would get scholarship the very next year. And I worked my butt off, and my main goal was to prove that I would be worthy of a scholarship when it came to me. And I really thought I did that first year. Then the next year comes, and don't get me wrong, I look back on this now and just know that if I'd have had a more mature mindset, I could handle the situation a lot differently. But next year comes, Hurricane Katrina hits the Gulf Coast, my home, completely wipes out my home, my actual house that my family lived in, kind of uprooted them, destroyed my city. And for the longest time, even though my family was actually staying with me during Katrina in Oxford, they came and stayed with me. When they went back home, cell towers were down. I had no way of getting in touch with them, and I went 2 or 3 weeks without even hearing from them. And finally got in touch with them and found out that the house was destroyed. And that year and the year after that, I was a miserable human being. I was awful to be around. I had quit going to class. I it was just a miserable time because I was just so upset and so frustrated with everything going on and just didn't handle it in the proper way. And I remember when I graduated, when I was at my last year as a manager, I could just kind of feel that the the people that were over me, Margie Gill, who was director of operations, and Sarah Carter, who I do another podcast with, she was on the staff at the time. I got the sense that it was time for me to move on, and I wish that I could go back and change those things and not take the whole Hurricane Katrina situation as mentally rough as it made me. I would, not take it as harsh because, within 2 or 3 years, my family had rebuilt their home. They, were back at it. Everything was good, but it's just those wounds just really, really hit me, and I would just hanging out with the wrong people up in Oxford. Just not bad people, but just when you're in a funk, it's the wrong people to be around because they gonna keep you in a funk. You start drinking heavy, you start doing this, doing that. It was a rough, rough time, and I hope that once I became video coordinator in 2008. I graduated, I left being a manager in 2007, which was the year we went to the Elite Eight, which honestly, looking back on that, I tell people all the time, I could tell stories on top of stories on top of stories. Miserable as I was making myself, that run with our many Price, Ashley Awkward, Jada Mincy, on that Ole Miss women's basketball team that made it to the Elite Eight that year, and finally were put out by eventual champion Tennessee and Candace Parker. But that run, there was so many stories and so many, just big time moments that I recall. And there is a lot of good that I look back on when I look at that time in that year. But I just was so miserable mentally that it was just hard for me to see it at the time. Everything was just a blur. But now I look back on it and I just tell story after story after story, you know, because that was a big time moments in my life was going through that and seeing us make that run. And so, yeah, in 2008, fall of 2008, as I've told on other podcasts, Sarah Carter moves on to an assistant coach position at Louisiana Tech. I come and be the video coordinator, which is a spot she left at Ole Miss. And now Renee Ladner is the head coach at this point. Carol has moved on to other things. I think she eventually winds up in Atlanta as an assistant coach for the Atlanta Dream in the WNBA. But yeah, so I'm on the staff, and my main goal at this point now is like I had my goal my first year as manager was to prove that I'd be worthy. I know when I got the job as video coordinator, I know because of how I left things as a manager, being so in myself and struggling with Hurricane Katrina and the likes of it. I know that I had some proving to do. I had to prove that I was worthy of that position. And even though I feel like I did a decent job, I still look back at things now and are like, if I could go back, if I knew then what I know now, hindsight is always 2020. But if I knew then what I know now, I could be so much of a stronger person. I may not been able to help us win games because, and ultimately, that's the name of it's a scoreboard business. We didn't win enough games. That's why we're not there anymore. And, but there's so many things I could have done differently. I could have, if, as good as I did them, I could have done them greater. And if I ever get another opportunity, I promise you, I'm not squandering it. Next opportunity I get, whether it's at Ole Miss or any other university, I'm in there. I'm in there, and I'll be the one who many people I work with at Ole Miss don't even know this. I was that person who would literally be up there all night working on video, getting video ready for the next scout or, whatever have you. And there were times where I wouldn't leave until 4 a.m. after getting all the video I needed for the next day done. The janitor at the practice facility would actually wake me up sometimes as I'd fallen asleep on my desk while video was running. And I would go home, shower, eat breakfast, do whatever I need to do around my condo, then come back and be at work, 3 hours, 4 hours later for that day. I mean, that was a lot of days during the season like that. And I know that there's coaches all over this country who can say that, but that was what life was like for me, because I just was out there trying to prove myself every single day. And, all the insecurities that I had then, they're gone. They're gone now. I'm a stronger person for having gone through everything I've been through in my life. I'm a stronger person now than I've ever been. And I just know that the next opportunity, whenever it comes, if it comes, I'm going to be greater for it. So, but yeah, so 2012, Renee Gardner is resigned. She's resigned from her head coaching position, which left me in kind of a pickle, uh, personally, because with her being gone, the next coaching staff's going to come in, and I know enough about the game of basketball to know next coaching staff comes in, more than likely they're going to clean house. They're going to bring in their own people. But me being, the position I was in, they allowed, and the Ole Miss administration allowed me to stay there until my contract ended in June, and see if there was any possibility the next staff coming in would keep me, and in my position. Maybe I could work with them, and I thought things were going well. I did, but at the end of the day, the new coaching staff had a vision for what they wanted, and Coach Wiggins was very open and honest with me. I appreciate that. I've always appreciated that to this day. He was honest with me where he wanted to go with my position, and I wasn't the right fit for it. Man, it is what it is. Um, so from there, I left um, Ole Miss. Contract ran out in June. Right before my contract runs out, I get an interview because Sarah Carter is at Louisiana Tech, assistant coach. She gets me an interview with Teresa Weatherspoon, the head coach at Louisiana Tech at the time. Get an interview, and knowing full well if she offers me anything, I'm taking it. And this is for the director of operations position because I needed a job and I wanted to stay in basketball. And so I get to La Tech on my interview, and we spend very little of that interview talking about my actual job. We spend the majority of the interview telling stories back and forth about the people I knew, that she knew, and stories of her playing with Liberty in the WNBA and me being out there watching her play when I was a Comet fan, out there visiting Coach Chancellor. And man, we just had a good time and just really kicked it off. And I only spent a year at Tech. A lot of it had to do with health issues. Like I said, I have Crohn's disease. And at that time, I was having, oh gosh, rectal abscess after rectal abscess, but dealing with my Crohn's disease, a bunch of different flare ups. And the hospitals in Ruston at the time just didn't seem to be as prepared to deal with a Crohn's patient as I needed them to be in my situation. And it just got to be where I was sick almost every other day with Crohn's flu. I still was able to do my job. Wasn't able to do it as to the fullest. Now travel and everything I had gotten down to a science, which was good for me. And I'm just an anal person, so that was very easy to get down to a science. I still stressed out because I stressed about everything, and we were in the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference at the time. They actually went to Conference USA the year after that. But in the WAC travel, you are going to Logan, Utah, and Idaho, and you're going out to San Jose, and you're traveling to all these destinations that there were times where during the winter we got stuck in Houston or in Denver's airport forever waiting on a flight, or because we missed a flight, or a flight got canceled. It just always seemed to be something. And I just well, still joke with people to this day. I said, "Gotta love that whack travel," because that whack travel, it was what it says it is. It was whack. It was bad. Uh, but yeah, those were some good times. And that 1 year that I spent there, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the dealings with the other side of the basketball game. I learned so much, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And I wish that health would have allowed me to be there longer, because actually the very next year, uh, Spoon was released from relieved of her duties from head coach, but it actually wound up being, and looking back at that staff that I had the year that I was there, wound up being a blessing for everyone involved. I think everyone on that staff is in a good place. I mean, you have Spoon, who after she was let go at Louisiana Tech, is back being I call her the Queen of New York, because she's back working with the Liberty. She works. She does TV and radio with the G League affiliate for the New York Knicks. I don't know where, somewhere in New York, Worcester, I believe. The Knicks G League affiliate. She does radio and TV with them. And I mean, she's just all over the place, and she's got her own clothing line coming out. The finisher clothing line. Look for it, coming soon. Check it out on Instagram. Um, but yeah, she's up there being the Queen of New York, being in her element. She's loving it. She's in a very good place in life. Sarah Carter left the year I left Tech, and she came back to the coast, and she's opened up a CrossFit gym because she had gotten real big into CrossFit. And if you listen to our Coastal Conversations podcast, you hear more and more about that. But she is at a place now where she's actually making some money. She's got a steady influx of clients that she deals with on a daily basis. So she's doing well. Courtney Simmons left left Louisiana Tech the same year Sarah and I left, and went to Troy, and she's been a part of back-to-back NCAA tournament teams. They're winning 20 plus games a year at Troy. I believe they're fixing to make another run into the NCAA tournament. I believe they'll win the Sun Belt this year if everything holds on for them. They got one of the best chances to win that league again. So she's got things, going. She's the recruiting coordinator there. And then Dave Caputo just got named this year the head coach at Delaware State. So he's back being what he ultimately wanted to be, a head coach in Division One. And he's doing well for himself there. So everyone on that staff is doing well, and I'm happy for that, because that was a year. That was a rough year for me, physically and mentally, and I know it was for them as well. Um, but yeah, it's good to see all those doing well. And since I left Tech and I've come back home and started, my own little small business and started doing these podcasts, my love and my itch for the game of basketball has always been there. I just got through spending a week back up in Oxford, Mississippi, and I watched the women's game there right before Christmas. And I will say this: everyone, this might be a rough year record wise for our girls up there with the women's basketball team at Ole Miss. But just understand me, that staff, Coach Yo, and the staff she's got put together, they're fixing to make things happen there. Gotta just please, I'm just asking for you to give them time. Give them time to show you what they can do. Let them bring their own people in there. They've already started recruiting some, big time names, and they've got, big time commitments already just in year one. Give them time. They have the resources there. They got a new pavilion arena that is just second to none. They have the practice facility. Ole Miss is growing by leaps and bounds. Oxford, the city of Oxford, is growing every day so much more. It was a running joke when I was there. You had to go to Tupelo in Memphis to do your shopping because there was just nowhere to do any shopping other than the square, and it was so expensive in Oxford. But now they have multiple different shopping centers and more coming. More growth coming. You got your movie theaters. You got restaurants everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. It's growing so much. I love it, and that's great for any athletic program at that school. But it's even better for my women's basketball team. And so, yeah, basketball is still there. My itch. I love it. I still watch it every day. I love to go down here and check out local high school games and see the local talent. And just I'm friends with a couple of high school coaches down here. Some I've been friends with for life, and others I've got to know just from going to games and things like that. But yeah, basketball, that it's always going to be a part of me, and that basketball love story just it didn't reopen the wound. The wound, not gonna call it a wound. The flame was already burning. It just put more logs on the fire for me and got me re-energized and refocused on different things when it become as it comes to basketball and my love for the sport. But yeah, that's pretty much my review, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope you all and all the basketball fans out there, if you have not seen all 20 hours of the documentary, I suggest you either get your own ESPN Plus subscription or get somebody to loan you theirs. I don't work for ESPN, so right now, maybe one day, but as of this point, I don't work for them, so I don't owe them anything to try and get them more money. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's worth it. It's something that's very memorable, and it leans a lot into past, present, and future. And it was something very, very something to see. And next basketball related ESPN 30 for 30 type documentary, the Last Dance, which is film crew was led into the last year of Michael Jordan playing with the Bulls when they were, Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen and all the like, Phil Jackson, the coach. So back the 1995, 96, 96 season, 96, 97. No, 90, one of them years. Lord, my mind's going crazy. But yeah, the Last Dance, when they won their sixth championship, I think maybe it was 97, 98. That was that was a heck of a season. And we're gonna get to a look inside the locker room. We're gonna see, a bunch of behind the scenes footage that we didn't get to see. We just maybe heard about because social media wasn't big then. It wasn't even a thing then. So yeah, we're gonna get to see things that the inner workings of Michael, Mike, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be something I can't wait for. So that may be my next 30 for 30 review that I do. But as always, I thank you all for listening, and thank you for flipping to the B-side. You can listen to the B-side podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, and TuneIn. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Please be sure to follow our show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the B-side podcast. That's at the B-side podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to get all the updates and different things happening with our podcast. Be sure to email us any questions, comments, what you think you like about the show, what you don't like. Our email address is thebsidepodcast@gmail.com. That's thebsidepodcast@gmail.com.
The A-side's got hype, but people root for the underdog. There may be a main event, but don't sleep on the undercard. Welcome to the B-side. You can take your sneaks off, take you for a sweet ride. Info we supply worldwide. Thanks for flipping to the B-side. Yeah. Hosted by Brian Mackay.